Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. You already know where you landed. It's the Her Voice Shines podcast, and y'all know I would never lie to you. This recording day has been a challenge, but I have become the pivot queen, and I think this is the best place to be. My guests have been absolutely amazing. I'm Shanasia Washington. I didn't say that, but I'm streaming from the very hot and steaming Houston, Texas. I'm not going to be able to take this summer because I'm already melting, but I have another beautiful guest who understands that. She's going to come to the stage, tell us her name, where she's streaming from, and we get the magic of her story. Without any further waiting time, is my very beautiful guest for today.
Hey everyone, I am Ryanne Saddiq, and I am also streaming from the very steamy Houston, Texas. Gotta love it. You walk outside and it's just like a wall of humidity that hits you. It's crazy. So I'm gonna just jump right into my story, right? Because that's what we're here for. My story is I'm the car girl who got too sick to drive the fun cars, so I wrote about them instead. So you can see my little books back in the corner. So it was a journey to get there. I actually went to school for art education, and I was ready to do my student teaching in 2008 when the market collapsed. And schools were letting go art teachers. They were letting go all of the extra teachers that they thought they didn't need. And at the time, I was working in an investment firm. Well, we weren't getting bonuses and no new hires were happening, but my job was secure and I didn't have to worry about being let go because I was extra. So I stayed where I was. I was in banking and investments for a long time, and I was award-winning for my position, what I was doing, and everything was great. But there's always a but, right? I have gone through my entire adult life never really feeling well. I felt fine, but there was always underlying fatigue, and whenever I got sick, it always lasted longer than everybody else. And it always just hit me harder than everybody else. And stressful events, like, I was in a bad car accident. It took me a long time to recover from that, both like just, physically my pain levels and also emotionally and energy wise. Like, it just took a really long time to bounce back from that. So eventually I found a doctor who was like willing to listen to me. Always advocate for yourself, because it's really hard, when you're not feeling well, but there's no easy answer. It's really hard to find a doctor who's there and willing to think outside of the box and support you. So I was diagnosed with low thyroid, medicated. I start to finally feel better, until more stressful events happen. I had my first baby, and I'm not bouncing back afterwards as quickly as I thought I should be. Other stressful events. I had my second baby, and I'm really not recovering well. And then we go into COVID, and COVID was so tough on everyone. And for me, it was, now my kids are home because of distance learning, and I can't work in my investment job because of federal regulations. They don't let you work from home. So here I am. I am now all of a sudden a full-time stay-at-home mom, no outside contact with the world, and we are dealing with my older child, totally independent. She goes and does her thing. And then my younger child, and it's just impossible. It's impossible to get him to sit in front of a screen. It's constant, put your feet down. They don't need to see your butt. Like, let's turn around and sit properly. And like, there was no learning. And when I say that one or both of us ended up in tears on a daily basis, like, no lie. So the stress of all of that, and then we actually catch COVID as a family. The kids and my husband recover, but again, I'm slow to catch up, and I start having other really weird symptoms after. So I'm having horrible tremors in my hands where like I'm having trouble writing and I'm dropping things, and just really feeling unwell. And I'm visiting doctors and they're trying to figure things out, and some scary things are being thrown out, like maybe you have Parkinson's, maybe you have MS, going for MRIs and brain scans and being poked and prodded, and just never really finding an answer until my doctor kind of thinks about it and he says, well, wait a minute, this all happened right after you had COVID. So let's do like a long haul COVID treatment and see how you feel. So that was a 2-week cocktail of meds, which was awful. It was very much, you're going to feel way better on these, or way worse on these meds before you feel any better. But I finished my 2-week course, and the tremors go away, and I do start to feel better. And it's like, okay, great. That was it. It was long COVID. Fantastic. I'm feeling great now. A year after we caught COVID the first time, my husband and I get COVID again. Now, a couple weeks later, we're on a bucket list trip. We are driving our car on the Formula One racetrack in Austin. We're not racing against anybody else. This is purely bragging rights. It's, racing against ourselves and our times and all of this. But I am having horrible symptoms again. So now the tremors are back in full force. I'm having cardiac symptoms. My brain and body, my brain is saying, okay, car, I want you to go this direction. And my body isn't making it go that direction. Well, that's really scary when you're going over 100 miles an hour on a racetrack. That's a problem. So I had to pull myself off the track. I had to get out of the car. I couldn't drive that weekend. And that was devastating because, we don't do that often, and it's really exciting, and you spend a lot of money to do it. And I wasn't able to. So that weekend actually triggered my doctor once again. And he said, well, now with the cardiac symptoms, I want to send your blood work off to a specialized lab. And I think I know what's going on. And sure enough, a few weeks later, I get my results. And so now this is a couple days after my 40th birthday, and I'm diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. They think that I've had it for over 20 years because I am a New England girl that moved down to Houston like 20 years ago. And when I tell you that I cried when I got that diagnosis, it made so much sense to me. I had been tested for it before. But this specialized test was better and more sensitive and able to pick it up. So getting that diagnosis, and there were all these tears, and they were not tears of sadness, they were tears of relief, because like, I finally know what's going on after all of this time of struggling and suffering and not knowing and thinking I'm going crazy because, like, if nobody can find an answer, then, maybe it's me. So I have my diagnosis, and I know that treatment is not going to be easy, but at least I know what I'm fighting. So once again, the treatments are a lot of, you're going to feel worse before you feel better. And the reason that the initial long COVID treatment had helped me was because it also treats Lyme. So back to all of that horrible cocktail of meds, along with many others. And now, as I'm, going through all this treatment, I'm hypersensitive to everything. And it's, smell. I can't, my mother-in-law was cooking in the kitchen and I had to close myself in my room because I couldn't handle the smell. Lights, sounds, I couldn't watch TV because it was just so overwhelming. Taste, touch, like my kids, they couldn't hug me because it was just too much. And so now, not only am I having all of these really horrible symptoms, but now I'm having to shut myself away from my entire family. And one of the only things that I could do was I could read. And so I read voraciously until eventually ideas started coming into my head, and they came out in this children's book series. So I like to say that there, because I'm a car girl, of course, right? There's a car quote by it's attributed to Mario Andretti, and it's, "When life gives you a curve, downshift and take it aggressively." So here I am. My curve is this illness, and me taking it aggressively is basically completely leaving my finance background in the dust and, transitioning to where I can teach lessons of resilience and kindness and self-worth and bring joy to kids and hopefully the adults that are reading the books too. And it's been such an incredible journey. I never would have expected to be here, but I'm exactly where I need to be.
What a powerful opening, Ryanne. Couple things. I honor you because it's not easy to be consistently dismissed by doctors and you have no idea what's going on. Interestingly enough, probably around October or maybe November, I interviewed a lady from New England who had Lyme disease. And she was a traveler. And that was kind of my first introduction to it some months ago. And she had a very long journey, just like you did. The problem was that she didn't have lots of insurance. And you talk about a specialized test. They would not administer that test to her to finally get the diagnosis. I can't remember specifically how she ended up getting it, but there was definitely a challenge. But she used some other things in her path, Reiki and different other types of healing because her Lyme disease took an incredible toll on her body.
Yeah.
So to hear that, and she didn't have children, but you're having kids. Also too, the other part of it was I'm a ex-financial services girl too. 13 years in financial services, and I left it cold in 2021 to come to a more creative space.
Yeah.
So to know that you were kind of going through the end of a career shift, health things, there's a whole mothering layer, there's a whole internal unwriting layer. I honor you. Because we see the surface of things, right? And we have no idea what's going on in really the background. Sometimes let's talk about this because a lot of women need to hear this because you essentially had to slow down to gain speed. And we talk about this, of course, as an analogy to cars. Sometimes you got to slow down so you can gain a little bit of speed. Talk to someone who may be struggling in a slowdown period because I had almost, it wasn't a slowdown, I had a stop period. Talk to a woman who may be struggling in that slowdown period because they can't see the other side. They don't understand it. It's going to pick up again. It may accelerate again. Talk to someone who may be in a period of slowdown and they may be struggling with that. Kind of speak from your perspective of having to do that, kind of recalibrate and get back on the road.
So there's a couple of things. So first of all, when you're in a race car, right? When you come up to a corner, you have to slow down. And then that downshift. So when you downshift, that's where the power is, right? That's so when I'm going to get a little technical here on the car side. But when you're going at higher speeds and you're in higher gears, you don't have the same amount of power as when you downshift and you're in a lower gear. That's what helps propel you, in a stronger manner. So I try to, I have to remember that sometimes, that slowing down is where you find your power. And then the other thing is that another car analogy, right? On a racetrack, it's some kind of, circle, right? No matter what curves are on it, you always end up at the start line and the finish line. But you have to take those corners to get there. So why can't we take those corners and have fun with them and see them as opportunities instead of as bad things, as something negative? Because in a racetrack, you're in a race car, the corners are the fun part, right? And that's kind of where I've had to take my mindset. If I can have fun on the track on the corners, then I can take my struggles in real life and I can make the best of them and enjoy them as much as possible as well.
Absolutely. And I can tell you guys, in the period that I'm talking about, I became the most alive. I think there is there's living and there's alive, right? And I'm very grateful, Ryanne, for the alive parts, but the truly living and walking, that's when I had a whole different perspective on life, how I navigate life, my conversations, everything just changed. So I think we both had a transition because, in financial services, I feel like I moved from a highly analytical space to a highly creative space. And that's just the easiest way that I can describe it. I want you to talk about this shift because for me, I just found new ways of just existing. Because when you come, and I didn't realize, when you live a life, it's 13 years, all I know. I go to work, I learn the regulations, I do this and I do that. And there's a whole different worlds and worlds and worlds and worlds that are existing around me that I have no context to. Tell me about this shift from maybe kind of living a somewhat analytical life to now one that's very creative.
I think that, when I was in finance, there were always little things that I would do to try to find and bring creativity into it. But absolutely, it's a very analytical space. And we had this system where, all of our tasks, when we marked them complete, they would turn blue. And so our thing was, at the end of the day, if you're blue, you're through, meaning if all of your tasks are blue, you're finished for the day, right? So when you're in a creative space, you don't really have that. You never know when you're finished. You could keep creating on the same project and changing things and editing and just, updating as much as you want until it becomes this never ending project. So there's definitely a big mental shift that has to happen. And what I found is it's really interesting because in finance, I was trying to bring the creative into it. And now on the creative side, not that I want to bring the financial, the analytical into it, but, trying to make it a business, trying to, have it be a career. There has to be that business analytical side. I had to make friends with Sam, which is sales and marketing, right? So, that's been a really interesting thing because I've been able to have the creative side and be able to get that out, but at the same time, still use my analytical financial background. So I haven't completely left it in the dust. And I think that's important too. I think, no matter how creative you are, you have to keep in mind that business stuff. You can't just completely ignore it. It has to be there in the background at some point. So.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I'm going to be honest with you. It wasn't easy for me to get to this place. The last part of my corporate career was very toxic. And I finally took the courage to leave. And I do feel like if it had been easy peasy pie on the road, I would have been still trying to make it work. Ryanne, you know that. I would have still been trying to figure it out and shrink down to all these different things. But if it had not gotten that rocky, I wouldn't have made the courageous choice to leave, because sometimes we think that everything that's happening to us in life is so personal. It's written to ruin us. It's all these different things. but there's so much glory and power on the other side of it. And I think your story has really exemplified, I think, that statement. The other part of it, I mean, there's so much power in writing for children. I don't think people realize that. Let me say it again, because I have a son. He just doesn't know I have so many, but I'm going to check this out because we already are picking our summer reading catalog. You know, we don't just do, I mean, of course, get rest and relaxation, but you're going to have to get up and do some mind stimulation and emotional stimulation.
Yeah,
it's really important in my household. It's so much power in writing for children. Tell me what's needed right now for emotional resilience, because kids are in a different world right now, Ryanne. They're in a different world. Tell me some things that you think are kind of key in building emotional resilience in children, because it's something that needs to be talked about.
For me, I wanted to use relatable characters, so that kids could see themselves in them. And I think by doing that, it makes it easier for the kids to like absorb the lessons. But again, like, it's really funny because, here I am, I'm wanting to teach these lessons to kids and make sure that they know, that it's not always about winning. It's about, doing your best. And it doesn't necessarily matter what the outside voices say when you know your strengths and your good points. But when I was going through the process, I didn't realize how much I needed to rehear those lessons too. And I think that's a big key to all of this, because as the adults who are either reading the story to the children or that are, sitting with the kids as they're learning to read, I wanted to make it hit them as well. Because if we model resilience, if we model self-worth, our kids are going to see that and they're going to take that on too. And that's been a really big thing for me because, my kids, they see me sick, but they also see me strong. And they also see me taking care of myself. And they also see me trying to be better for myself so that I can be with them. And I think that that's a big lesson to all of us, because it's not just, teaching this to our children. It's, we all need to remember these lessons.
That's so good. My son is 7. He'll be 8 in July. And I've been having these moments in life where I have to prove resiliency, Ryanne.
Yeah.
It's like fun to say these words because like they can be buzzwords, but when you're in life and you have to prove resiliency, those are the ones that keep me grounded, because now I have my son in here, and life, of course, it shifts for us a lot with, taking on caregiving for grandparents and different things, moms running the business, with all these different moving components. And then there are days where I'm like, I want a cave. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like, it's just so many competing priorities. I am trying my best to keep the ones that are really truly the priorities at the top and, keep it taken care of and, do all these things. But it gets to be a lot. And those are the moments where I have to come to myself and say, what in this moment would I tell him? And that's why it's so important for you guys to be the living example of that. I'm not saying perfection, because there is no perfection.
Mm-mm.
There is no, it's not even an idea in my mind to be perfect.
Exactly.
But I'm grounded in my ability to continue and show up in spite of the hurt, in spite of the unknowing. Because I was just saying this morning, it's like for this whole period of like the past 3 weeks, I'm like, I don't want to be the pivot queen. I just wanted to go.
Like, I'm strong, but I don't want to be strong, right? Like, we have those moments.
Like I said, I didn't sign up for it today. I mean, look, I'll get back on the battlefield in a couple of weeks, a couple of days. I just don't want to be on the battlefield today and the next day and the next day. But and I get to the end of it, and I really have to say, wow, you did it, and you didn't even know how to do it, but you still did it. Yeah. And in this world where there's so many other, I'd say, stimulation and other information for our children, the best thing you can do is be that living model of resiliency. And I wanted to make sure you talked about that because you have done that. And I wanted people to see that because it's one thing for it to come out of my mouth, but when the people on the show can see all kinds of women dealing with all kinds of adversity, prove resiliency, that's the thing that keeps it going. Yeah. There. So I want to make sure I give you a clean segment to promote these books. Yeah. Wonderful books. Where do we find them? Where do we connect with you? Tell us a little bit about how we connect with the publishing company. I want to make sure that we have a clean segment that talks about your service and what you provide, and then where we can find them. So over to you for that.
So the books are available on Amazon, most major book retailers like Barnes and Nobles, Books A Million. So you can pretty much find them anywhere. If you contact me directly, if you want a signed copy, and we can work out making sure that you are able to get a signed copy that way. I'm on Instagram. My handle is my name, so at Ryanne Saddiq _author. I try to have some fun things on there, some fun car things and some inspirational things and some books things. So I try to keep it fun. And then my website, www.twupublishing.com, and that has all of my appearance information and my newsletter, so that you guys can stay up to date. And with my newsletter, I actually give out a bunch of free stuff. So right now you can get the free coloring pages for both books if you sign up. And then in each newsletter, I do fun things like I did coloring Valentines for my February newsletter. My kids are obsessed with Mad Libs right now, so I just did a Speedy Phoebe Mad Libs. So we're having fun with it, but that's a great way to keep in touch. And I'm actually working on a Speedy Phoebe emotional resilience ebook that will be attached to the newsletter for free as well. So lots of fun stuff that you can get there from my newsletter on my website. And I'm trying to bring joy and happiness and show kids and adults that, if I can handle my curves, then you can handle your curves too. So
I love it. And y'all, this has been such a beautiful analogy type podcast. I mean, we weaved into it so beautifully, and I love that. But I was telling Ryan, because let me just say I was anxious to talk to her today because I knew I needed the refreshing feel of resiliency. It's one thing, and I just talked about it kind of in the previous segment. I've talked about it in a couple podcasts, but I think last year, 2024, was one of the. I said I always declare like a word at the beginning of the year, and I said I'm going to be like fanatical. Right. Okay. And guess what happened when I said that, Ryanne? All hell started breaking loose. I don't want you to think that I said it in all these.
You opened yourself up to that one, right?
I don't want you to think I said it and all these things just start falling into place. It just did the opposite of that. And I remember thinking like, maybe I just bit off a little bit more than I can chew. Maybe I can't do it. And I had all these different things, but I'm telling you guys, I legit just kept walking every day. And so much uncertainty and so much hurt and so many different shifts of the family life and just so many things to figure out.
Yep.
I guarantee you, if you can just stay grounded, and I don't care if you, maybe every day you can't give 100%.
No.
It's not what we're saying.
No.
Someday you may just have to speak a word over yourself, whatever it looks like. That propels you forward, the little bitty pieces.
Yeah.
That's what I encourage you to do. That's why I told Ryanne, y'all know I don't care. I tell the truth. I was late to this podcast interview and I said, she better not leave. I said, she better not leave because I got some questions to ask her and I want to ask her these questions. So I honored her for her time and energy because I think it's been a beautiful story of resilience. And that's what all of this said to me in my spirit when I read it. But I do have something that's called rapid fire, Ryanne, which means I got 10 questions I pre-prepared.
Okay.
A word or maybe a sentence or two, but not a whole lot extra. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just what it is. Okay. First thing. Favorite racetrack or driving road? We know you're a car girl.
Oh, Northern California.
Okay.
Mm.
What's one car that you've always wanted to drive?
Ooh, I got to drive it.
Oh,
So Porsche GT4. It's one of my favorite cars.
okay, car girl. Look, I
Manual
don't know.
has to be manual.
Oh, I'm gonna take your word for it. Okay, that's all I can do. Fiction or nonfiction? I
Fiction.
know okay, yeah, it's a broad one, but I know you're a writer. Okay,
Yep.
all right. What's your writing fuel? Is it coffee, tea, or something else?
Oh, definitely coffee.
Oh, you're a coffee girl. Okay, I'm a
yeah.
tea girl. Okay.
It's my blood type. Yeah.
The most underrated children's book of all time. Do you have something in your catalog that you really like?
Ooh, underrated children's book. You know, I think just for the fun of it, you know, not really teaching any lessons, but just because it's fun and adorable. I love the Penelope dinosaur books.
Wait, my son had to read those. Was it this year or last year? I think. Oh no, I think it was like late last year. I think that was in his reading kit. Yeah,
and they do. They have cute lessons in them too, but they're just like between the words and the illustrations. I just, you know, like I love, I love those books.
Yeah, there was one about the tacos and the tacos being too spicy and all these pepper. It was just
Yep.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that series. Give me one word to describe your writing style.
Chaotic.
Wasn't expecting that one. What's one corner you're about to take in your life or business?
Ooh. I am working on a keynote and a nonfiction book about
nonfiction? Okay.
Yeah, about the art of cornering aggressively. How basically life lessons at our toughest turns. So yeah, I'm going with that car analogy.
Oh, I see. I didn't know. Now, keep me posted, but if you don't, I'll look around, you know. You know, that's just who I am. And this is a good one because I want you to give your past self a message, the one that was before the diagnosis. What would you tell her?
I would tell her to keep going as she was going. You know, I think a lot of people look back and they say, you know, I have this regret or I would change this. I don't have any of that because everything that I went through brought me to exactly where I was supposed to be.
Beautiful. And I love that. Define resilience in one sentence.
Having all of the tough things happen and getting through it with a smile anyway.
And this one, we've talked about this one in previous segments, but I want you to finish the sentence. My story proves that slowing down
is where the power is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Round of applause for an amazing rapid fire round. I like to call that grit, grace, and cars.
Yes.
Hashtag.
I love it.
That's the hashtag. Now listen, Ryan, this is the part of our show where we cue over to you for final thoughts. We ask our guests to give them something that captures really the essence of them and give us some really good parting words to close out the space that we shared today, which, by the way, has been absolutely beautiful.
Well, I really appreciate that. So I guess, you know, I just want to make sure that people know that corners are opportunities and, you know, slowing down and finding our strength and our power is really, it leads to the drive being an incredible thing instead of just focusing on the finish line. So tons more car puns for you, but totally relevant. And I hope that everybody's able to find joy in their journey.
I love it. Let me just tell you, it's been such an amazing time here. And in case you guys don't know, I know you see the video that comes up, and I know you see the branding, but this is really a place of passion for me.
Yeah.
This is a place that I really love, and I really hope that that is evident in the way that these are conducted. And I tell these women, look, I don't know what you think you signed up for, but hey, we're going to have it. And Ryanne came and do that, and I consider it a huge honor. To everyone who's watching the Her Voice Shines podcast, we'll be back with another amazing episode, really in no time. And just like the church people say, I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. But until that time, we're out, and we'll be back with another amazing woman. We love you.
Thank you.